And now, an hour of mental elevation for divine inspiration. The What If God Were One of Us show. With your host, Adib Shabazz. Greetings, and welcome. Good morning to some of you. Good noon to you others on the East Coast. This is Adib Shabazz, your host of the What If God Were One of Us show, and thank you once again for joining us for yet another program. We have some great things going on today. We've got a fantastic guest, and I'm going to be introducing him in just less than 2 minutes. Just want to go ahead and get you briefed and updated as usual. What's going on with me and the projects I'm working on in the What If God Were One of Us show. If you are interested in getting the book, What If God Were One of Us, you can do so at www.whatifgod.net. That should access the ebook for you if you want a physical copy. Best thing to do is go on Facebook. Hit me up on facebook.com/whatifgod. And you can get all the updates on the previous shows, the book, and other information and discussions. We also, as you may know, myself, I am the publisher of Proven Publishing and also the publisher of a new multimedia magazine called Hip Hop U. That's the letter U. And we're starting a Kickstarter campaign so that we can get the additional funds that we need in order to make that a living reality and actually bridge the gap between the very fundamentally sound foundation of hip hop and the new school of hip hop as it exists today. So we definitely want to go ahead and get that going. Please go ahead and look into that. We will be launching that Kickstarter campaign for 30 days starting tomorrow. That's Friday, September 27th. So please do look into it. Look up Hip Hop U, that's Hip Hop the letter U, Multimedia Magazine on Facebook as well for more information. And those are our updates for today. I'm going to get right to our guest. Our guest is a wonderful brother and friend of mine, Dr. Peter C. Rogers. He is a fellow light worker, certified professional life coach, a motivational speaker, a fellow minister of metaphysics, and spiritual counselor. He is the author of a great book called Ultimate Truth, Book 1, Universal Truth, Thinking Out the Box, Book 2, and he has an upcoming book, 100 Disciplines to Higher Consciousness, a conclusive synopsis on spiritual principles, which I am very excited to see. Very. And I know Dr. Rogers' work, as a lecturer, as a teacher of the Master Key System. If you haven't heard him present on that subject, you definitely do. That is an ancient system of manifestation, which was formulated by Charles F. Haanel over 100 years ago, and I've never heard it taught so brilliantly from anybody else besides Dr. Rogers. He has been a columnist for the Infinite Field magazine, Inner Child magazine. He's appeared on numerous radio shows, including this one, when we were on the Freedom Path Radio Network several times. And he and his wife have formed a nonprofit organization called PELSA to assist people in overcoming substance abuse. And this is an area where he is very helpful, pulling from his personal experience. This is a brother that is very dynamic. He comes from the heart. He comes from real experience. And that is where it is invaluable, because we can read theory all day. But when we can actually say this theory is backed up by practical application, that's another story. So we're bringing you somebody who can help you develop answers for you. And without further ado, I want to bring on Dr. Peter C. Rogers. Welcome. Thank you for being on the show with us.
Good afternoon, Brother Adib. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. I just want to say thank you very much for having me here on the show. As I alluded to on Facebook, I know this is going to be a very interesting dialogue, because I know your style of hosting, and I know you're very engaging and very intriguing. Not to mention, you and I share similar backgrounds and some of the same philosophies. So I'm looking forward to just having this dialogue and seeing what may come of it.
Thank you. Likewise, it's always a great meeting of the minds. And as you said, we have similar backgrounds. It's always good to dialogue with a kindred spirit such as yourself because there's so much connection. It's so much more fluid and so much more fun, not only for ourselves, but the listening audience also.
Absolutely. And of course, Adib, you and I have been somehow or another engaged in this work together for probably the last few years. And there were some endeavors that we were hoping to get together on that have not yet materialized. But nevertheless, I'm always available to you, brother. I admire the work that you're doing. And anytime you send the call out, I'd be more than happy to accept and to embrace any endeavors that you're a part of.
I appreciate that. And speaking of that, I've got some works going on behind the scenes that as soon as we get them solidified, we want to make some of those things that have not occur because that's going to be dynamic. And for you listeners, stay tuned because we're going to bring something to you very, very strong in terms of actually taking your potentials and manifesting them in a way that, just you probably have not experienced before.
Terrific.
But, definitely. We're going to go ahead and just get into this discussion. Brother, it's been a while, and we've got a lot to catch up on. Some of the listeners, especially those who are here on the Inner Light Radio Network that may not have been previous Freedom Path Radio listeners, don't know you as well, or perhaps have not become familiar with you. I mentioned some of the work that you've done as far as your books and as far as your teaching in the Master Key system. But let's just familiarize our listening audience again with you. I'd like to start with Universal Truth. I love that book, and especially book one for me was really enlightening. All of them are actually just very powerful books. And what I'd like to always ask, putting on the critical thinking cap for those who would be just encountering you for the first time, why Dr. Peter C. Rogers? What is it that separates you, or perhaps not even separate, I should not say, but what is it that draws you or them to you in terms of your teaching? What will it draw out of them that is so powerful that will be something that's life-changing for them?
Well, you alluded to it earlier, Dee, when you mentioned that most of what I teach and most of what I convey, comes from firsthand experience. And anyone who's striving or endeavoring to get to a certain point in life or a certain place, I think it would behoove anyone to look at someone who's been there, done that, got the T-shirt, the coffee cup, and the hat, and then has been able to transcend those situations and get to a point where they're striving to be. So I think I can, because of my experience and because of my range, as you would say, I think I have a broader reach. I can reach down into the ghettos. I can reach down into the homeless sectors, and I can convey a message to those in corporate America. So my range is diverse. And I think that kind of helps people when they can connect with you on a soul level, on a heart-to-heart basis. It's somewhat more embraced and sincere when someone has had those experiences, has overcome them, and is now trying to pave the way and provide the principles and the means in which for other people to also get to a certain level of consciousness.
Right, absolutely. And that is so critical that we have a lot of theorists out there, and, theories are great. Some of them are even valid. But we need to hear it from somebody who's been there, done that. And that is definitely you, so-called, as the saying goes, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps.
Right.
But it doesn't hurt to have some instructions on how to grab those bootstraps and pull.
Right,
so
right.
That's where you come in, and that's where Ultimate Truth comes in, as well as book one, as well as book two. And I'm really looking forward to this next book that you have coming out. Sounds powerful. What are some of the fundamental techniques? I mean, we only have, just a few minutes in here, but, as far as just whetting the appetite of those who are willing to make that change, but just need the know-how. in a very practical way, what are some of the tools that people will find in your work that is so transformational and so applicable?
Well, I would have to say the application itself of these principles. You mentioned earlier, Adib, that theory is one thing. Knowing of these concepts and knowing of these disciplines is only half the battle. The other part of that is how to actually put them into practice and how to implement them in our lives. And most people don't necessarily understand what it is that people like you and I are trying to teach to them. It's something that's inherent to their being. It's something that's already there. This is nothing new that I'm trying to convey to you. I'm only simply trying to remind you of that which you already possess. And so I serve as a reminder to people. I firmly believe that truth in and of itself is encoded in the DNA. It's a part of the cellular makeup of spiritual beings, and we possess vast wisdom and vast knowledge of what we like to call spiritual principles. And these spiritual principles are what govern the entire universe. Everything succumbs to these laws. They are laws that dictate how things in an energetic environment are to coexist and to perform. And so when we think of the human body, and I'm going to get a little bit into just a little bit of metaphysics and a little bit of the science without getting too technical, but when we think of the human body, it is simply an encasement for an energy that is the soul of each of our beings. And that soul itself is simply energy vibrating at a certain resonancy or a certain frequency. And when you speak in terms of a spiritual principle, it is simply a vibration that we encase within a word. A word is simply a law that we speak. You know, they say the word is your law, or the law is what you speak into existence. So when I talk about things like honesty or courage or faith, there is an actual resonance, a vibration that goes out into the ethers when I say those words. The key to my practice and the key to what I try to teach people is that you can harmonize and align yourself with those frequencies. And as you begin to do that, you begin to resonate and you begin to function and live on the vibration of those particular frequencies that you want to coexist with. So if I say, today I want to practice how to be honest, well, when you affirm that you are already honesty within and within itself, then throughout the day you have a constant reminder of when you're being dishonest, because you start to feel the antithesis or the opposite vibration of what you're trying to exist on. So by learning these principles and learning to practice them and hone them and align ourselves with them, then we will begin to notice a miraculous change in our attitudes, our behavior, and the way we exist here in three-dimensional existence.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in a nutshell, if I had to just break that down into just one statement, I would say that people have to realize that there's no line between the physical and the non-physical. And we have to become comfortable with that and realize that transformation is within us and recognizing that.
Absolutely. That's exactly what the concept that I was conveying is about. If we're looking at this from a scientific approach and I put each of us under a powerful enough microscope, all you're going to see is just simply quirks, strings vibrating, and that is the core of who we are. Everything else outside of that is just mass. It's just matter slowed down into density. But we are energy, pure, unadulterated energy.
Right, so we have to make sure that our frequencies become in balance and become correct, and that's where your work is so powerful in getting our frequencies tuned into the vibrations that are best for enacting our transformations.
Absolutely. Right now, a lot of us are living disharmonic, meaning there are things that we would like to achieve and things that we would like to enhance about ourselves, but we're not on that particular frequency, if you will. Anyone that's hearing the sound of our voice, my voice, right now, what they have done is somehow or another, they've aligned the channels in which to receive this vibration that is going out from whatever frequency, whatever hertz that is being broadcast on. But that's not to say that the frequency has not always existed. It's just we haven't tuned into it. And this is the foundation of what I like to teach, is that everything that you could ever want or possibly desire is already there in existence. You just simply have to align yourselves with it and tune in, so to speak, to that which you're seeking, because it's already there. Everything you're seeking is already there. It's just waiting for us. It's waiting for you to align yourself with it, and as a result of that, become that.
Right. I saw a demonstration the other day, and there was a workbook that the audience was using in this class that was teaching upon the same type of principles that we're speaking of today. And in the workbook, you got to page 34, you opened up to what would be page 35 and 36, and they were blank. The instructions were to go ahead and number those. And as they got to page 37, the point was brought up that I bet you numbered them 35 and 36. But you could have numbered them 16 and 102. You could have numbered them 345 and 395. But we do this kind of automatically because we think that that's what's supposed to be done.
Right.
Our expectation is so strong that we have to realize we put ourselves in a position to experience what we do experience. And that was a powerful demonstration of it, because we can change that expectation at any point in time. And as long as we have set our minds to actually, quote unquote, believe that expectation, it comes to pass.
Right.
Each of our cells, you were talking about how if we're under a powerful enough microscope, are just moving energy, vibrating energy that is not solid at all, in fact, but just broken down to a higher density because of its vibration. We create new cells every day for our body, for example. And I'm just leading into this, to get to your next point. When we're creating those cells can be created just as they were, just a duplication, or they can be created to be as they were when we were 12 years old. But we, just like we sequence those pages, decide to put 35 and 36 because that's where they are. So if we're happening to be 45 years old right now, well, we create that 45-year-old in one day cell.
Right.
Where we could create a 12-year-old cell, just if we actually inherently believe that. But we are conditioned through mass social conditioning, among other things, to age as we do, to think as we do. If we're in poverty, then we create more poverty for ourselves because that's the logical next chapter. So that's where I'm leading at with you. Can you let the audience know how you can change your logic and create your own logic to create a new reality?
Certainly. Well, most of us suffer from what is called enculturation, which is just a big word to say that I'm a product of my environment. And we become products of our environment because we, at an early age, we receive indoctrination, we receive instruction, we receive examples that come from various impressions, if you will, such as our parents, our religious institutions, the educational systems, societies, the people we choose to associate with. And they then become the examples that we set for ourselves. And they set the barometer for where we think we should be, or the level or the heights at which we think we can achieve. So if I'm looking at people around me who have only achieved a certain level of success, and that then becomes the acceptable level, then I impress upon myself that this is where I'm supposed to be, and this is what I'm supposed to achieve, and nothing beyond that. It's like the example that T. Harv Eker uses when he talks about the thermostat, either in your home or in your car. If you set a thermostat to 76 degrees Fahrenheit, and the temperature outside of that structure is warmer, then naturally the thermostat is going to kick in to maintain that particular temperature. And by the same token, if the temperature outside is lower than the temperature, then it's not going to come on because, well, it's going to come on because it needs to raise the temperature within the room. So anytime you have a thermostat set at a particular frequency, not a frequency, but a temperature, it's going to always engage itself to make sure that that temperature is maintained. Well, the same holds true for us. We set our temperatures at an early age based upon what we think is acceptable and what we think we are to achieve. And that could be, for example, I'm going to make $30,000 or $40,000 a year because that's what my parents made, and that's what everybody around me seems to be making. And I'm just not using this as a financial means. I'm using it as a means of looking at all of it from a spiritual perspective as well as a financial, because, again, it's all energy. There's nothing wrong with being abundant. There's nothing wrong with having wealth. In fact, it's in agreement with the universe because the universe itself is abundance in expression.
Right.
So when
Peter, just one moment. I think we have a caller, and I want to get them in before the break.
Okay.
Got a caller that looks like it's from Columbus, Georgia. Caller, are you there? Okay, perhaps they've just called to listen in. Not sure, but go ahead. I just want to give them an opportunity. Go right ahead.
So we're the same. We're no different. We're a structure. We're an embodiment. And if I set my thermostat, so to speak, to only achieve a certain level in life, then no matter what happens beyond that, my thermostat is going to kick in anytime I start to either exceed that or fall below it. So I'm going to set the pace. I'm going to set the level at which I think I should be achieving. The thing is, what we see is what determines that thermostat. Our first teachers are our parents. You know, we get our first lessons in the home. But we have to understand that in order to change the conditioning that we received and that programming that is so inherent to our being and our nature, because we've received that instruction throughout our entire impressionable stages and ages throughout the years, we have to start focusing upon different ideologies and different concepts and different beliefs. And in order to do that, we have to start putting our focus and our concentration on the things that we would like to achieve. Most wealthy people have wealthy friends. You've probably heard it said that if I hang around 9 broke people, I'm going to be number 10. Well, if I hang around and I associate my people with like-minded people who are striving and seeking higher consciousness and are exemplifying these principles that we're speaking of and have attained and reached a level of success that I would like to achieve, then I then have to now put my focus on what it is that they're doing, and then my barometer or my thermostat will start to increase, and I'll be able to now supersede those boundaries or those levels and those limitations that I've established for myself throughout my entire existence.
I love the way that you put that. I mean, something was just flashing in my mind. I mean, I had the aha moment even for myself that, you know, if we want to go ahead and turn up the heat, so to speak, we've got to raise that level of that thermometer. And that is a wonderful illustration. It makes it very clear why we need to meditate and visualize. Because people say, well, I don't really know. I mean, I know it's supposed to be better for me. I know I'm supposed to connect to my higher vibration. But when you realize, and it's illustrated like you illustrated, that if you don't, then you're looking at your environment, and what you produce is more of your environment over and over and over again. You know, because we're creating ourself every day. And if we start to meditate and visualize and focus upon what we actually desire, then putting that into our mindset actually helps us create what we desire. Because now that's what we see. And like you said, we make what we see.
Right.
And if we see poverty, we create poverty. Right. If we see lack, we create lack. We are in a condition, then we create more of that condition. Unless we take our focus away from it, make it as unimportant as possible, saying that, look, well, I might be here at the moment and I see it, but it's not me. And that's the whole point of meditation, just saying, well, look, yeah, I see my environment, but I am not my environment. And allow yourself to play in meditation. Allow yourself to actually have fun with it and create that emotional, I'd even say, attachment to it, because we're always going to be attached to something. But if we choose what we're attached to, rather than allowing it to happen for itself, that creates a conscious control in our awareness that allows us to say, hey, I'm a millionaire, even though you may have 2 cents in your pocket, and allows you to play with that. Because some of us may not have 9 rich friends to hang out with, but we can create that council of 9 rich friends in our mind and be at the Taj Mahal or at Trump Tower or wherever we want to be at. Be at the pyramids in Egypt, having fun with those who we care to be with, enjoying and actually just soaking in the experience. And that is a wonderful thing. We can go wherever we want. We can do whatever we want to do. So that is great. We're going to shortly go to a break. But before we do, I'm going to have you do this twice, but before you do, go ahead and give your contact information where people can actually get your current books. And we're going to go, before we actually finish for the hour, go back to that and actually talk about your upcoming book and when that's coming out and how people can stay in contact for that. But go ahead and give your current information for the current books that you have out.
Okay, thank you. Well, people could obviously go to my website, which is www.drpeterrogers.com. That's Dr. Dr. Peter Rogers, ROGERS.com. And that basically will provide you with links in which to purchase the books. Of course, you can Google Dr. Peter C. Rogers for places and avenues in which to purchase the books. Obviously, you can visit me on Facebook at Peter C. Rogers, PhD, to follow any ongoing blogs or any upcoming events. But those are the 2 primary modalities that you can reach me on, www.drpeterrogers.com, as well as Facebook, Peter C. Rogers, PhD.
All right, great. And we're going to go to a short break. And when we come back, we'll go ahead and get into more discussion and take your calls and your questions. Be back soon. Stay tuned. What if God were one of us? That's right. Your favorite show is back on the air and is now on Inner Light Radio, the healing frequency. Join me, your host Adib Shabazz, as I and various metaphysically oriented guests discuss our God nature and explore the divinity within each of us. Tune in live each and every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for an hour of mental elevation. The What If God Were One of Us show, Freedom Path Radio production, now on www.innerlightradio.com. Right. Thank you for staying with us during that short break. This is Adib Shabazz. In case you're just joining us, you are with the What If God Were One of Us show here on Inner Light Radio, the healing frequency. And we're interviewing my good friend and associate, Dr. Peter C. Rogers. and we're discussing ultimate truth. We're discussing transformation, and it is a great conversation. We do invite you to go ahead and call in, come in to actually contacting us on Inner Light Radio through Skype. And didn't have the telephone number in front of me. But definitely contact us either through Skype or by telephone at 310-928-7733. And Peter, we are in the midst of this discussion of transformation and looking to give people more direction. Mm-hmm. Before we get back to the nuts and bolts of that, are there any places in particular, just speaking about what you've been doing, that you are going to be appearing in person anytime soon if people want to actually attend and get some personal instruction from you?
Well, at the present moment, I don't have anything on the calendar, although I get invited out to speak and lecture on a regular basis, but that's usually sporadic. But nothing lined up at this point for anything in the coming weeks. But that's generally for anyone who's local here to LA County, Orange County. But again, Adib, there's nothing on the calendar at this point. I've just been divesting my energy into working on this 100 disciplines and trying to get that to move forward, at which point when it's produced or published, rather, I'm pretty sure I'll be very busy with signings and lectures and so forth and marketing.
Right. I figured I'd ask, but it's understandable. You're definitely embroiled in the book. And speaking of the 100 Disciplines book, since I definitely did put a focus on that, and that was just my excitement in its forthcoming. When can we expect that book coming forth?
Well, in speaking to the editor, we're slated to have the project completed by the early part of 2014. So I'm assuming January, February of 2014, the book should be ready for publication.
Excellent, excellent. That's something definitely to look forward to. Meanwhile, as far as personal counseling goes in the LA area, being that Inner Light Radio, I know, has a large following in Southern California. It is based in Southern California, even though I'm out here on the East Coast in Savannah, Georgia. So we've got some listeners out there. If they want to contact you for some personal coaching, are you available during the time that you're writing?
I am. I do provide teleservices, which would be conference sessions, one-on-one spiritual life coaching from the comfort of your own home with today's technology and all the various mediums in which we can either Skype, Tango, just different methods of being able to have video chats, preferably conversations. So I'm available across the nation to provide coaching sessions. And if you are interested in pursuing or seeking that, again, you can go to www.peterrogers.com under the Spiritual Counseling tab, and you can basically put yourself on the calendar. Otherwise, you can call me directly at area code 323-270-7737. Again, that's 323-270-7737, and we can talk more about what it is we need to do to help you reach those goals and aspirations.
Excellent, excellent. Just definitely want to get that in. Now back to the nuts and bolts about what we've been talking about in enacting this transformation. I spoke about creating new attachments. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will come and ask me, and that's the reason I brought it up, about how to break the bond, so to speak, of the attachments that they have currently. Mm-hmm. You know, we're talking about spouses sometimes,
okay,
friends. It's quite an embroiling, and it's of course very difficult when you're dealing with family, especially because friends are hard enough to actually change. But then sometimes our families are anchoring us in the position that we're at. And it's hard to get them on board. It's also not a clear-cut thing that we just want to say, look, cut them off and go live by yourself in the desert and make some things happen in that respect. We can't necessarily just do that automatically, but how do we separate just actually bringing ourselves into a new level of attachment, a new level that we choose, and kind of disassociating ourselves without hurting the individuals that are around us? That's the careful balance that a lot of people are having an issue with.
Okay. Well, a good friend of mine always says, where we are in life is where we are in consciousness. So I'm a firm believer that everyone that's in my life today is there to make me more conscious of particular areas in my life that I want to either transcend or immerse myself. So the people who we have, such as our immediate family members, our spouses, we have to realize and we have to remember that we all signed up for this long before we incarnated. We all made a soul agreement to participate in one another's lives, to help reflect back to one another the areas where we need to apply the most work or the most energy. When that happens, when that exchange takes place. In other words, when I receive from, let's say, a life partner or spouse or a mate, what it is that I have to offer or they have to offer, and they in turn receive what it is that I have to offer them, the relationship will automatically dissolve itself because the lesson has been transacted. So if someone, in my opinion, is still in our lives, then there is still yet something that we have to offer one another. Otherwise, the universe is such that people come into our lives for a season and for a particular lesson and for a reason. And once that happens, there's no longer any purpose for that relationship to continue. Now, we might ask ourselves, well, what about my long-term relationships? What about family members? I obviously, can't get rid of them. And that's true because they always have something to share with us. The thing is, if we're seeking to change our environments and we're seeking to change our associates and the caliber of people that we associate with, the quickest way and the fastest way to do that is to raise your own vibration, because people will no longer feel comfortable when you're talking about something that they're not accustomed to. They will automatically remove themselves from or associating themselves with anything that is remotely related to you because you're on a different wavelength now. When you change, people will be forced to either change and raise their awareness, or they will seek out new associates. So I just like to say to people, continue to do the work that you are set out to do for yourself. And subsequently, as a result of that, the people that are meant to be in your lives will be there, and those that are not meant to be, who are not reflecting back to you the areas that you need to do the most work, they will no longer be there.
Right, absolutely. Reminded me of a few things. One, I was a guest myself on Dr. K's program here on Interlight Radio, Heart to Heart, and we were discussing such things. One thing is that we have to stay in tune with our own frequency and do our own work. We were definitely focusing on that. You only control your own environment, and we have to be careful to understand that. The change comes from within you. And that's what I would just add to that, or not add because you did say it, but just to reemphasize that the change comes from within yourself. So we have to constantly be in remembrance of that and not focus on, but what about them? Because that's often what people look at, because we're used to looking on the outside. It's that inner eye that needs to be developed. And we also were talking about on that show stepping into fear. And I pointed out something that the universe is always expanding. I mean, it's a physical fact. It's an energy fact that the universe is expanding as we speak. So therefore, we being a microcosm of the macrocosm, we're always expanding as long as we're staying in tune. as we become more in tune with the universe and we expand, we do feel a certain discomfort, which can be translated as fear sometimes, because it's the uncomfortable, it's the unknown, especially if you're expanding your universe. It's an unknown area, and that's what we're talking about, stepping into that unknown area. You brought out a very good point that as we begin to change our vibration, that those who are not changing along with us or not growing with us will not really vibrate with us. They won't be in tune with us any longer. And that's a scary subject. It's a scary type feeling for us. But at the same time, brings me right back to meditation. And as much a reminder for myself as the audience, we really need to stay in tune and in touch in order to overcome that fear that we have of separation, because there is no real separation. There's only the attachments that we have with that which is familiar to us. And we're so familiar with what the way things have been. But we have to trust that as we're creating the environment that we desire, that everything will come along with it, including the relationships that will help nourish that new you. Can you speak a little bit more on that? I mean, or if you have anything to add to that particular aspect, people becoming comfortable with their transformation and their growth.
Well, I don't know if you are familiar with, Shabib, I'm pretty sure you are, the concept of resonancy, Schumann's resonance. It deals with the hertz or the vibration of a particular environment. In other words, planet Earth itself is a living, conscious body. It's a being, and it also has a pulse, if you will. And that pulse, over the last, probably 20 or so years, has been registered somewhere around 7.8, meaning that when we're dealing with hertz, we're talking about cycles per second, meaning that pulse or that vibration is happening 7 cycles per second. Over the last 20 or so years, what has happened is that vibration, that resonancy has increased. It's now somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 cycles per second. Now, what that means to us, as we were just talking about our associations and the people that we allow into our consciousness and into our lives and into our awareness, what that means is that as coexisting beings on this planet, in order to be here and remain here, our frequencies have now risen to that point where we're vibrating in accordance or in agreement with the planet. What that says is that we're all increasing our vibrations. We're all moving at a much faster pace now in order to exist on this planet. We may notice how days seem shorter, time seems to fly by. Well, it's because the cycles of resonancy are moving at a much more rapid pace. And what does that mean to us? Well, it means that if I raise my vibration, and the people that are around me that are closely associated with me will either have to raise their vibration or no longer exist or coexist within my awareness.
Right.
It's the same thing. If we want to exist within or around a particular frequency, we have to raise our vibration to that particular frequency, or we cannot exist within that environment. It's just the way things are. It's called homeostasis. You have to be in balance. And if there is no balance, then there is no harmony. And so people will no longer feel harmonized with what it is that you're doing when you start seeking to achieve things that, as I said, are beyond their barometer or beyond that thermostat that they've established for themselves. They can't feel comfortable in an environment or a climate that's a lot colder or a lot hotter than they're accustomed to. So the people will eventually fall away that are not meant to be in your environment. And you create that environment, as you said, Brother Adib, through your mental practice, through your meditative practice, through your treatment, your mind treatments, by believing and thinking and projecting into the universe, into the mind of God, what it is that you would will for yourself. And then ultimately, as you begin to project that from within outward onto the film or the movie of your life, then you will begin to notice how everything around you will ultimately change as you begin to change.
Absolutely, and support your environment that you've now created. I think we have a caller. I'm going to give them an opportunity to chime in. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, this is Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yes, greetings, Sarah. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you. Do you have a question for our guest or a comment that you'd like to add on for Dr. Peter C. Rogers?
No, actually, I found myself to be in total alignment with what the brother was saying. You attract basically based upon the vibration, the energy vibration that you give out. So that's why it's important for us to be mindful of what it is that we're thinking and that we're speaking, because we're going to attract just based upon the nature of that vibration that we're putting out. Whether it's negative or positive, we're always creating. So that's why it's always important for us to just be in constant awareness and to be censoring the thoughts that we're allowing into the garden of our minds, and also be aware of the external influences that we're allowing ourselves to be around, because that also affects the nature of our thoughts and speech. So, yeah, I totally agree with what's been said.
Great, thank you for chiming in on that, and it's very important what you just said. I mean, we're a lot of people are careful about what they eat, for example. People are becoming more aware of different chemicals that are being added to foods and processed foods and genetically altered foods, genetically modified organisms are very much in the media today. However, as important, or I dare to say more importantly, because it is important that we put the right foods in physically, but mentally, we're in charge of processing those foods, and we're in charge also of processing the food that goes in the gardens of our minds, as you say. We have to be very aware of what we're thinking first. I mean, and I always tell beginners who are unfamiliar with, let's say, meditation and silence, that it's not some type of grand scheme. You don't have to sit in the lotus position. You don't have to have a certain thing going on. Start with silence. Start with knowing yourself. Start with just becoming aware that there are things going on. Most of us are nonstop. Just as you said, Dr. Rogers, the frequency of the earth is increasing now to 11 hertz. The pulse is increasing, and our pulse is increasing, and we're driven because we're in tune with the earth, because we are part of that whole environment that we live on and live in and live through, that we are increasing our energy, but we do so a lot of times unconsciously. And because we do so, we're rushing to CNN and Fox and Entertainment Tonight and TMZ and trying to stay up with everything, and MSNBC, and we're trying to move faster, but we're just moving faster, kind of driven from the outside, so to speak, or so we think anyway. Because we're staying in tune with a pulse, but we're not necessarily doing it from an aware state of being. So becoming more aware, becoming more in tune with the fact that we are co-creators, that we are responsible for our primary environment, our individual experience. We can then begin to just become, first of all, silent, noticing what we are thinking, and as you said, Sarah, to become very selective, very distinctive about what we allow in our mental environment and what we decide that, no, I'm not going to allow that. I don't wish to think about that. I don't feel good about that, so I no longer will think that. But we need to replace it with something positive. So we need to spend time daily just thinking about how we want things to be. Most of the time, we think about how our parents, or perhaps even most of the time, the media wants us to think. Media controls a large portion of our lives, even so-called conscious media. controls a lot of our lives, and we have to decide, do I really want to think like that? Do I really want to agree? Is this a reactive type thought where I'm reacting to stimuli rather than creating the environment that I want? So it helps us to become very aware and begin to give ourselves an input that is from our own creative experience. And I know for a fact that Dr. Rogers' book, Ultimate Truth, both book 1 and book 2, actually help you be able to become aware of this particular entity. But thank you, caller. I appreciate your input. In these last few minutes, Dr. Rogers, what are some of the key elements that you're going to be covering in the new book, and what can we look forward to in it?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank Brother Sarah for being in agreement. And just the mere fact that he's tuned in to this show and listening and willing enough to call in says that he's resonating at this particular frequency that we're speaking on. But in terms of 100 Disciplines to Higher Consciousness, what it actually is, as I mentioned in the subtitle, it's a conclusive synopsis, which means it's all-encompassing. It's a breakdown of these very principles that we're talking about here. And what I did was I took the liberty to go through the dictionary and extrapolate or pull out at least 100 of what we call spiritual principles, beginning with acceptance and ending with wisdom, and everything within from A to Z. And what I do in the book, Adib, is I pretty much expound on what these disciplines are, because make no mistake about it, living spiritual is a discipline. It's a practice. It takes constant reminder. It takes meditative practices. It takes being consciously aware of what we're thinking at all times. And those are disciplines that you get from the root of the word disciple, or a teacher or a student who's learning a particular practice. So what I do is I allow anyone who reads the book to understand on a deeper level, on a conscious level, what the principle of acceptance is, how they can practice it in their lives. And I should say how we can practice these principles in our lives. The beauty of the book is that it's an A to Z reference, meaning you don't have to read it from page 1 to the very end. At any given time, or any particular time in your life that you feel you need to understand and practice more of any of these disciplines, be it willingness, courage, hope, faith, love, acceptance, you can go to the book and understand on a deeper level, what is the principle of love? What is the principle of hope? How can I practice these things in my life? And when you begin to internalize these principles, the natural reaction should be the application of the principles. But the book is what I like to call a synopsis or a encyclopedia on spirituality in terms of how we can practice these disciplines. Every single day, Adib, and you can attest to this, every single day we're always practicing something, whether it's fear, whether it's courage, whether it's hope, whether it's doubt. Every single day we wake up, we're practicing something based upon our conditioning, what our minds have told us, what our environments are saying to us, what our parents have suggested to us, what our religious backgrounds have suggested to us. And it is our goal, it is our divine right to learn how to put ourselves in alignment with the disciplines that we choose to practice rather than the disciplines that were handed down to us generation after generation.
Absolutely, and that was wonderfully put. And I'm glad it's going to be an A to Z. I mean, I know I'm going to have it on my shelf. And, you know, I love references where I can pick up. I mean, great books that have been out already, but I love those A to Z type references where I can pick up and I have my mind on a particular subject that I want to focus on. Mm-hmm. So that's something that's definitely going to prominently stand out on my bookshelf. We're almost at the close, so I'm going to allow you to go ahead and give your contact information once again. And I thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Peter C. Rogers.
It's always a pleasure, Adib. Anytime you need me, I'm always here for you. But those that are listening, you can always, again, reach me at drpeterrogers.com. If you want to chat, you want to become a friend on Facebook and follow my day-to-day post and just the things that I'm involved in on a regular basis, you can find me at Peter C. Rogers, PhD. Again, that's Peter C. Rogers, PhD on Facebook. But if you want to reach out to me and talk more on an interpersonal level, if you want to talk about life coaching sessions, by all means, that number is area code 323-270-7737. Again, 323-270-7737.
Excellent, excellent. And I thank you once again for being with us. I'm glad that you've extended your time to me once again, and I'm glad for your openness to always be in dialogue with me and with my audience. It is great to definitely share with you, the audience, once again, somebody who is near to me and dear to me and whose work is just phenomenal and life-changing, a brother, a spiritual partner, and just someone who I'm definitely proud to have with me on this journey that I've decided to take and be able to walk alongside this brother. Thank you again, Peter, for being with us. And for the audience, I look forward to joining you once again, hearing from you once again next week as you hear from me. Stay tuned to more of Inner Light Radio. We have some great programming coming up. And thank you all for just joining us. Please stay in tune and do like us on Facebook, facebook.com/whatifgod. And you can also like me, Adeeb Shabazz, that's Adeeb, last name Shabazz on Facebook, and stay in tune with me as well in the various things that I do. Thank you so much, and until next week, this is Adeeb Shabazz for the What If God Were One of Us show.